In today's video, I'm going to show you the making of my new artwork, Dòigh Nàdair, which means in Scottish Gaelic, the way of nature. Now, as I clean my desk a little bit, I have been listening to a really amazing audiobook called If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie, and it has been so amazing and fairly transformative and inspiring. It's about wise and powerful women in Celtic mythology, and it has been, I don't know, like so nourishing and rooting. I've got this deep-seated sense of belonging to Scotland, to this place of my ancestral roots, and the book is making me feel all the feelings surrounding that. So I wanted to put that into an artwork, which is what this one is. But I want to share with you my whole process from conception to final. Now, when I begin an illustration, I'm like, I need to do an illustration. I usually do them once a month for my Patreon reward. So this one is going to be for the August Patreon reward. So I knew that I wanted to do an illustration. I just felt it in my bones that I wanted to do an illustration based on the idea of powerful women in nature, as nature, hugging nature, helping nature, something in this sort of realm. So that's like the idea that popped into my head. That's where all my illustrations start, with just an idea popping into my head. And I started with doing a couple of little doodles in my sketchbook, just really like brain spewed it out kind of thing, not much idea going on. And I wasn't really feeling it. I wasn't really coming up with any ideas with just spending 2 minutes drawing in my sketchbook. So I pulled out a couple of my older sketchbooks. I think these ones are from 2020 or 2021. And I slowly flicked through those and just tried to come up with some ideas, grab ideas that I had in the past that I hadn't conceived yet, or that I hadn't turned into anything yet. I really love looking through my old sketchbooks for ideas. I feel like they're a treasure trove. They're a bank of ideas from past me. And for a while there, for several years, I was like, nope, that idea, it's past. It's not current mine idea. It's not current Sophie's idea. So I can't really do it. But I've kind of like released that block in my own head over the last year or so, because that's just silly, and all these things that I come up with are my ideas, and maybe sometimes some things aren't ready to be made into something just yet, and it's okay to sit on ideas for a while. And yeah, that's a joy of sketchbook. It's just a library of ideas that you can come back to if you need to. So I found this page in my sketchbook, which is a woman running into a doorway, and the doorway is the forest. I had done this artwork before for a Patreon reward way back when I started, and I really loved that one, and I thought it would be a fun idea to redo it in my current voice. And I was sketching away and, just like trying to figure out how doors look and what kind of body shape would go through that door and what kind of energy it would bring. And I don't know, I was just kind of not really feeling it. I was in this mood like, everything I do is just like it's not what I want. It's not the idea that I wanted to portray. I wanted it to be more of a loving, caring feeling illustration, whereas I feel like this concept was more like a running away, a disappearing into nature kind of concept. And I had done it before, so I wasn't too worried about recreating it or not. I thought it would be a cute idea to do a then versus now thing, but I ended up moving on from this little idea after several minutes and several attempts of trying to find a way for this body, for this composition to work. And I grabbed out another sketchbook and I had a big flip through of that one as well. So it was from a similar time, like these sketchbooks were done one after the other, so they would have been 2020 to 2021 era. These sketchbooks are really fun. I think I have some sketchbook tours of these ones up here, early day stuff, if you're interested. I love these two sketchbooks are two of my favorite sketchbook. I feel like I was going through a big shift in growth, in self-realization of what I needed and what I wanted in my life. And I don't know, a lot of freedom, a lot of expression, a lot of joy and play in these two sketchbooks. So they're really fun to look back on. I don't always look back on my old sketchbooks, but when I do have a good time. And there's lots of little ditties like this one that just, I just threw them down at the time, not really thinking too much about them. And then future me can look at them and be like, yes, this is what that means, or this is what I can bring into current Sophie's brain and current Sophie's ideas. So there are a few in here that were kind of speaking to the theme that I wanted to portray. And then I came across this one of big nature woman embracing another woman who appeared to be kind of like crying, and I sort of thought maybe this big woman is actually the mountain, or like the earth itself, like life itself. So I sketched it out again in my current sketchbook, and I wanted to make it a little bit like you had to really look to see what it was, by disguising the larger body with a bunch of mountains and trees and a river running across her body. Like I wanted her to almost be disguised as a mountainside. And the closer you look, the more you realize what it actually is. And my idea was that the smaller woman is us currently. Our world is like, climate change, everything's happening. It's all this awful stuff is happening in the world that is incredibly heartbreaking and infuriating, and all I feel like I can do is cry and make art about it. So that's how I was feeling. That's how the character in the bottom was feeling. And I want the nature to just kind of be like, I've got you. I've got you, and we can evolve through this. We can work through this. Mother Nature always comes out strongest. And so that's kind of what I was thinking as I was doing it. And I really love playing with like flow and rhythm, so lots of swoopy lines, lots of big chunky spaces. Really excited to get on with this piece. So I was also looking back at some of the other artworks I had done during the time that I had worked on those two sketchbooks you can see there. And a lot of my work back then was like ink or gouache with coloured pencils over the top of it. So I thought, while I'm like harking back to an older idea of mine, I'm also going to hark back to like an older style that I used to love so much. So I grabbed out some watercolor paper. It's Fabriano brand watercolor paper. It's quite a inexpensive Fabriano paper, this one, but I really like it. It's got some good texture, not too overwhelming, and good tooth to it, so it makes nice textures, nice layering effects as well. And then I grabbed out some ink. These little bottles that you see here I got several years ago for in an ink vent calendar over the 12 days of Christmas a couple of years ago, and that was so fun. It was the best advent calendar ever, and I still use these inks fairly regularly, and there's so many different colors. So all those tiny little ones are from the ink vent calendar. And then a couple other brands that I just had in my ink stash. I kind of just got out all the pinky colors that I could find. And this is me pre-blobbinating my page, just throwing some colour around. And I chose to do pinks and reds as my base colour because this piece is going to be a nature piece. And I was kind of thinking that a lot of it would be greens and blues, like very nature colours, very lots of grass and hills and trees. So lots of greens and blues. And I was thinking that green and blue is kind of like opposite to pink and red on the colour scale, on the colour wheel. So I thought it would be nice to have a pre-blobbed pink background, because when I draw with my green pencil over the top of the pink, and leave little pops of pink peeking through the edges, it's gonna like create this really fun vibration between colors, and yeah, a vibration between pink and green and that sort of thing. The glow from within, this pink glow from within, is like warm and exciting and filled with love and jolliness and silliness. So that's why I chose to pre-blob with a pink base, or a pinky red base. And I had a lot of fun doing this. I do love a good pre-blobbination moment. And then I got out the hot pink ink, which is just so fun. I realized that it was a bit too, I don't know, like soft. So I got out the hot pink and threw that around a bit. And yeah, just to elevate the brightness of the pink, for the glow underneath all the other colors. There's really not much like technique to this. I'm just throwing it all around. Where I feel like things should go, I put them. I don't really overthink this. My hand kind of moves faster than my brain does in this area. But if I notice there's more red on this side and less red on that side, I'll balance it out. Yeah, but all in all, there's not much I'm thinking. Quick dry. I actually popped it in front of the heater to make it dry real quick. And then I grabbed out my pencils. I use Prismacolor pencils. I do have a couple of Caran d'Ache, Polychromos and Holbein pencils in there as well, but 95% of the pencils are Prismacolor pencils, and I love Prismacolor pencils. They're so creamy and buttery and lush, and I feel like they work super well on this watercolor paper because they can really handle texture, and I tend to press really hard, so they go really well. They go really strong. So I'm now just referring to the sketch in my sketchbook, and I'm getting a light purple Prismacolor pencil out and just lightly sketching an outline guide for myself onto my piece of paper. Kind of what I do is I look at the piece as a whole and I kind of blur my eyes and try to use my mind's eye to see the composition on top of the piece of paper that's there. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but I kind of like foresee it a little bit on the piece of paper and just try to draw that out as close as I can. Yeah, and that's sort of, I don't know, how I stay in the lines, I guess, stay in the page. And I don't mind if I make some mistakes here and there. I mean, I'm going to go over everything in a really I'm going to press really hard with my Prismacolor pencil. So you're not going to see any of these sketchy lines anyway. So it's all really light. And I guess I just draw so often that I trust my hand. I trust my mark making. I don't really erase stuff that often. This one, I didn't erase anything on this one, but if I had made a wrong line movement, like you can see on the right hand side, the mountain's arms, I tried to do it like 3 or 4 times, but that's okay because it's going to get drawn over anyway. And the reason I chose a purple pencil is that it's visible, it's darker than the pinky orange background, but it's still like similar color story to the pinky, so that if I do leave a bit, if a bit doesn't get drawn on top of that, it's not that noticeable. And even if people do notice it, I don't really mind. I kind of like that you can see the story of the artwork, the way it was built up. Yeah. And I do a lot of working out in my head compositionally. Like I said before, I try to like almost project it from my mind's eye onto the piece of paper in front of me, just by blurring my eyes, trying to figure out rhythm and stuff. I'll kind of, like try to, instead of hone in on certain areas, I'll try to look at it as a whole and think, what's heavy and what's not heavy, where does the shape need to go to balance out the weight of this line or the weight of this shape, and sort of go work like that, kind of on intuition and feeling it out as I go. And the thing I was most excited to draw was this teardrop, so that's where I started because it made me happy. Just go in with the flow. I decided then and there to fill her hair with flowers. So I used a dark green, it looks kind of black here, but it's a super dark green pencil to outline some little flowers inside her hair, and just figure out the placement of them as I went. And then took to some layering. I grabbed a bunch of darker-ish colours and layered a bunch of them on the hair, and I started with this beautiful fuchsia colour. I'm not sure what colour it is really, but this beautiful deep pink fuchsia, and just went in, kind of did negative space around the flowers and stuff, and grabbed a purple. I think I include some dark blue and a little bit of more maroon colour as well in the hair, and I just had a really nice time filling in around the edges of the flowers. And just, do the same thing as I go throughout the whole piece. I like to layer different pencil colours over each other to create new colours and to create shadows. I'm all about layering. I love layering and building up depth and that sort of thing in my colours, and create new colours and that sort of thing. So this piece of blue is the kind of the river, which originally in my sketch it was across her chest, just from the shoulder down across the breast chest area, but as I was sketching it in with the purple pencil at the beginning there, I was like, I feel like the flow would work better if the water of the earth came streaming from her head as her hair. The streams of waterfalls are her hair across her body, instead of just like randomly starting from across the shoulder. And I feel like that made a bit more sense. If I was a big mountain woman, my hair would be the rivers, why not? And then I decided to add in some giant flowers popping up all around and just play with scale. I thought, as I was sketching it out, I thought I needed some balance of scale, because we've already got this huge play in scale of this giant woman hugging this giant mountain woman, and then all the little hills and all the trees, they're all tiny, dotted across the mountain woman's body, and I just wanted to play with scale a bit more, so I decided to throw in some giant flowers blooming all across the body, kind of like a growing out of the crying woman. And I think that playing with scale in my illustration just adds this extra element of whimsy and fun and play, and just something a little bit different, a little bit playful. I also incorporate a lot of patchwork quilt elements in my illustrations, and so I wanted it to almost feel like a giant quilt in a way. Especially further on through the illustration, you'll see the mountain woman's body kind of becomes like a patchwork quilt. And a lot of that comes from looking at different landscapes, and when you see different directions of grass and different types of bushes and brambles and trees and flowers all kind of like laid out across the land, it almost looks like a patchwork quilt. And like fields and stuff like that, it looks like a patchwork quilt to me. So I wanted each of her like little patchwork sections all up and around her arms to kind of be a representation of fields and different landscapes across her body. But yeah, you'll see that a little bit further on as I continue drawing. One thing that I love when I use Prismacolor pencils is layering. I mentioned it before, but I really love layering, and you can see me doing it here in the flower leaves. So I will make my little outline of the leaf and scribble in little sections, and then I'll take another color and I scribble in more sections, and again, and layer all these interesting color textures within each leaf. And the pencils have this beautiful creaminess that it makes me able to do this sort of thing, and it kind of looks like paint. It looks like gouache, I don't know, and I just love the way it looks. I love layering lots of different colors. I still remember in grade 3 or 4, there was this little girl who was sitting next to me. Her name was Sarah, and I had all these connector pens, and I was like scribbling all similar colors together, and then I was like, let's play a game. You choose colors for me and I'll add them to my page of color scribbles. And she chose all these weird colors, and I remember scribbling them next to each other and thinking, all reds don't have to be together and all blues don't have to be together. I can put greens and pinks and yellows all together and make them look interesting. And I always think about this page of scribbles that I had with all these randomly chosen colors that this little girl Sarah had picked for me out of boredom. And I think about that when I use Prismacolor pencils, especially when I was doing these leaves, stuff like that, where I mix the colors as I go. And I really like the contrast of the mixed colored leaves with the more flat colored elements of the drawing. I thought that was quite interesting. I didn't necessarily do that on purpose. This is sort of me thinking now as I'm talking. Like everything's flat colored, and then why are the leaves so like differently textured within color? So I don't know. Some things like that are just a mystery and they just happen. So a lot of the time when I'm making illustrations like this, I kind of just make stuff up on the spot. I knew that I wanted a hill-shaped situation here where I'm drawing currently, but I didn't know how to make that work, so I kind of did an almost like a green rainbow, and the little circles with sticks are trees, and they all kind of perfectly line up, and it's just an abstraction of a hill in the distance with a bunch of trees, temporary trees or something like that, across the edge of a field maybe. And I kind of just like how that looks. It doesn't necessarily have to be trees, it could just be a pattern, but in my head they're like little trees across a tiny landscape, which makes up this giant mountain lady. As you can see, I'm not layering the color down perfectly flat either. I'm leaving little bits of pink peeking out between colors or within the colors. Just like what I said before, it's really zingy and poppy when there's a bit of pink just like poking out through there a tiny bit. I just love the dimension it brings. I feel like when I use Prismacolors on stark white paper, I get annoyed by the white getting like poking out between all the colors. So I try my hardest to press as hard as possible so that I completely cover the white. But when I've pre-blobbinated with a nice bright color, I feel like I can be a little bit nicer on my hands, so I don't have to press as hard. And I really like the way it looks when the underneath layer kind of pokes through. So here I'm doing kind of the patchwork quilt style arms for the mountain lady, kind of what I was mentioning before about the patchwork landscape kind of looking like a giant quilt. Yeah, just as I went, I thought that there was a bit missing up at the top. I originally sketched in this one little flower, but then I decided to add a few more flowers above it. I kind of look at the direction that things are pointing, and there's a lot of energy leading from the bottom right of the piece up to this top corner where this flower is that I'm drawing right now. And then in the opposing direction with the flow of the hair pointing up to the top right side of the page. There's a lot of energy going that way. And later on I add a pink moon or a pink sun above her head, sort of, or above the shoulder, on the right hand side, just to balance out all of the flowers that I had drawn on the left. But in a softer way. I don't know what I'm saying. just like thinking about flow as I go. I almost feel like I'm toppling over. If I'm seeing that something isn't rhythmically making sense or rhythmically doing, I don't know, moving me around in a certain way, I feel like I'm toppling over. Sometimes it's okay to have heaviness in one side but not the other side, but it somehow has to be weighted. It has to feel right in a certain way. Even if you are like going for a movementy topply kind of effect, it's nice to have some way that it just doesn't feel wrong, like something that you need to balance it out so it doesn't feel like it was a mistake. So yeah, as I'm going through my illustration making process, or any process of whatever I'm doing, landscapes even, if I'm feeling like there is a weird empty space that just feels bad, I will add something in it to give it a bit more balance and a bit more symmetry. Maybe not symmetry. I feel like balance, rhythm is the right word for it. So a lot of rhythm and flow I'm very conscious of. And yeah. And that goes for colours as well. I feel like I try not to let too many colours take over each other. I'll try to keep a nice good flow. And yes, of course, you have to stop and stretch every so often. I try to stop and stretch every 30 or 40 minutes while I'm making art, especially something like this where I'm drawing and pressing quite hard. I get really sore pain in my hand, and I have to stop and stretch very often. I'm starting now to add in a few bits of detail here and there. Sometimes I leave the face and the tiny details to the end, but I was kind of getting a bit frustrated at this point. I was doing a lot of big blocking in sections, and I just wanted some satisfaction of doing some more finished areas. So I started drawing in the hands and the eye, the crying eye, and a little bit of shading as well, just to make me feel good that it's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm working towards, that kind of level of shading or that level of finish, or of mixing colors. And I did a little bit, make myself feel good about it, and then moved on to some more blocking in section. The whole other sleeve on the right hand side of the mountain lady needed to get done, but I had to make myself feel good, and it's my drawing. I sometimes I punish myself by saving only the best things till last, but I have to remember it's okay to to sometimes do my favorite parts when I get to them instead of leaving them for last. And that's kind of what I'm doing here, because my favorite part is like finishing touches and adding the shadows and adding the fingers and just like all the little finer details. I find that really, really fun. I had a good time with the shadows in this piece as well. Down the bottom under all the flowers on the body of the woman, the upset woman, I did a lot of these sort of pinky purpley shadows, which I thought were really cute, and they kind of like complemented with the hot pink pre-blobbed background, so I could let them like flow through a little bit as well. And it just, yeah, the way it balances out the mossy greens of the leaves. I think like purple and green are really nice together for that. Purple always makes really nice shadows. As you can see, I didn't use any black whatsoever. When I make my darkest colours, I almost mix colours, so I would have used some super dark green and dark blue and a little bit of dark red to create some of the darks in this piece. Actually, I don't think I really used much red. It's mainly super dark blue and super dark green, and layered them on top of each other to get it even darker. Sometimes using proper black can muddy colours a little bit. I feel like it just dampens things out a bit, and I like to find creative ways of creative ways of making shadows, and that can be using purple, completely different colour to what you would, I don't know, like automatically think is a shadow. Shadows aren't really black, they are bounces of light from the other colours around them. And in your mind's eye, if you look at a shadow and bring it into Photoshop in your mind's eye and adjust the saturation and the colours, it can be purple or pink or blue or green shadows. That's how my brain works. Oh, one super fun part is now going in and using white or a really, really pale green to fill in the skin of the smaller crying woman. I wanted her body to be bare. I didn't want her body to be filled with green hills and textures and fields and patchwork style skin yet, because I feel like she is the human, I suppose, in this story, or she is the young newcomer who is going to take over from the mountain when the mountain gets too old, in the next generation or something like that. So I wanted her skin to be white like my skin, I guess, because, you know, all my artworks are more or less a self-portrait in a way. So yeah, it was really fun using the white Prismacolor over the pre-blobbed pink background and leaving little bits shining through, especially for the elbows and where like blushing happens. The mountain's skin color on the hands have the more of the green kind of look to them, because she is all mountain, she's all green, she's all alive and thriving. Whereas our young person, our crying person, is naked, is fresh, is learning, is growing. So, and it's also just adds I don't know, it makes it more visually interesting. I feel like we can see her better when she's blocked out in a single colour rather than a patchwork of other colours, because I feel like she would just get lost in the mountain if I also made her skin patchwork. So yeah, like before when I was talking about balance and rhythm, also I guess that happens within shape as well throughout the artwork. So you're looking at like line work and flow and color rhythm and shape rhythm and line rhythm. That's all going through my head as I make choices while making my little artworks. One of my favorite details to add are like little hair bits, messy hair bits. So fun. I just can't get over how pigmented Prismacolor pencils are. Like, oh, they're so lush, they're so delicious, they're so creamy and buttery. I want to get a tiny spoon and scoop it and eat it like yogurt. So this artwork is going to be the August 2024 Patreon reward artwork. So it's going to be a double-sided mini print. On one side you get the artwork, and on the other side of the mini print is like a collage of the sketchbook stuff that I did to get to the final piece, which you can see here. And the vinyl sticker, the matching vinyl sticker, is going to be this, which is very cute. It's going to look amazing. So if you want this artwork in your hands, if you want this double-sided mini print and this little sticker in your hands, then sign up to the Orange Bird tier over on my Patreon during the month of August. So anyone who signs up within the month of August or stays on within the month of August will get these goodies mailed out to you. But yeah, definitely go have a look at my Patreon and learn more about how all that works. And thank you so much for the support. I can't wait to send this one out to you all. I've ordered the postcards, I've ordered the stickers, it's ready to go. So as I'm posting this video, I'm currently on the other side of the world to Australia. I am in Scotland and Ireland, and I am hosting a trip with 15 other people. We are spending 8 days together in Ireland, and I'm going to be teaching them how to paint the landscape, how to fill in a travel journal, and yeah, we're just going to hang out together and paint and draw, and it's going to be amazing. And we're going to explore Ireland as we go. I've been to Ireland before, and it's absolutely magical. And as soon as this Trover Trip company reached out to me, I was like, we are going to Ireland or Scotland. And most people chose Ireland on the survey, so we're going to Ireland. So that's where I am right now. And Scotland, I've been to Scotland so many times. I've got tons and tons of family in Scotland, and my ancestry lies there. My mum's family is all Scottish, and my dad's family line leads to Scotland as well, all from the very, very north of Scotland, so like the edge of the earth. And I have this amazing sense of belongingness and homeness and knowing of the land. I can't explain it. I'm not necessarily a spiritual person, but this just like deep rootedness that I feel for the north, the very, very north of Scotland is just really intense. And I have a lot of artworks about it, and this artwork is added now to that pile of artworks, which is really nice. So I've been thinking a lot about Ireland and Scotland and my heritage and myths, and you know what it is being a woman, and having a place, having a home, feeling this longingness for a place that I didn't grow up in, that my roots connect to. Like this is a topic that has been on my mind since I was able to be self-reflective. Probably early 20s. So yeah, I'm really excited to actually be releasing this illustration at this time when I am currently in my place of my family, of my ancestry. So I really hope you like my artwork. Dòigh Nàdair is a Scots Gaelic word which means the way of nature, and that's what this piece is called. I hope you really like it. I want to say a great big soft and beautiful wonderful thank you to my patrons. I can't thank you enough. I want to thank you every time, all the time. Whenever I make a video, I want to give you all a special big hug and a thank you, because you are the best and you keep me going and you keep me making art regularly. I don't know how I would be doing without that. So thank you so much for your support over there. I adore you. We have a great time. We have a great cozy time over there. Hopefully you learned a lot about my process while watching this video. If you have any more questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. There's no magical algorithm or anything like that. A lot of it just comes from intuition and play, experimentation, and a willingness to kind of make happy accidents and mistakes and make weird decisions and see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Okay, tooroo.